Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the KOBCast, in which we are discussing Sharman. Sharman is in the increases and decreases chapter of the first book, Knitting Outside the Box, and it is an exploration of what you can do. It's kind of a proto drape and fold before I actually got to drape and fold, because it starts like a shawl, and you knit it like a shawl for most of it. And then at the very end, you take the sleeves off and create a shrug. So let's take a look at that. Also, it's very warm. I don't need to have that on. So if we take a look at Sharman, what we have is two stockinette panels on either edge, and then one lace panel in the back. And I absolutely love this lace panel because it was kind of like a micro exploration of the concept of increases and decreases within the context of a larger macro exploration, because each of these shapes has you increase a bunch of stitches all at once and then you decrease them away over the following rows. So really fun to play with, really beautiful pattern. What this does is that as I lay this flat, if I were to lay this flat before we turn it into a garment, we have basically a trapezoid. Okay, we've got our increases happening right here and then on either edge of that lace. The basic increase rate for this, and it's a little different with this one because of some stuff happening within the lace itself, but the basic increase rate for a trapezoid shawl is 4 increases every 2 rows. And the really cool thing about increasing and decreasing across knitting, this is not just shawls, and this is something I'm going to go into in the book, is that the angles that we get from increasing at a certain rate are predictable. We can say, I know that 4/2, like we've got with Sharman, like we've got with, take a look at a lot of shawls out there, 4/2 tends to be the constant. That gives us a 180-degree top line across the piece. So what that means is that if you knit a shawl that has 4 increases every 2 rows, no matter where you place those increases, your top line of the shawl, your wingspan edge of the shawl, is going to be a 180-degree line. It's going to be straight. The placement of those increases changes what the bottom looks like, what the hem looks like. So with Sharman, what I've done is that these increases move out. Okay, so think of it a top-down triangular shawl. Top-down triangular shawl has those increases along the top edges and then straight down the spine. Those increases straight down the spine mean that we end up with a point at the bottom. That's how a top-down triangular shawl happens. When we move into a trapezoid, we take that point away by moving those increases out on either side of that triangle. So rather than having the fabric to the outside of the increase get bigger as you continue the shawl, the inside of the fabric between the increases gets bigger. We create that insert triangle. That gives us the flat hem at the bottom of Sharman and gives us a more traditional garment shape. Could you do a sweater that had that point at the bottom? Absolutely. You could totally play. You could move your increases into a different location. And I want to. But this was a shape that I really, really wanted to play with. And a lot of inspiration from this comes from a shawl shapes class that I taught at Tolt Yarn and Wool out in Carnation, Washington. And the lovely Tiff Fussell, Dottie Angel, was in there. And she's like, oh, you could even just fold these over and it would make a sweater. And I was like, hold my beer. So Sharman is an iteration of that concept. So Sharman has worked in Dovestone DK from Ba Ramu, and this has been discontinued, but they have a really great new substitute, and that's all linked up on the Ravelry page if you want to take a look at that. And then it was named by Verity, who is one of the women who owned Ba Ramu at the time. I think she's since moved on to doing more radio work, which is really cool. And it's named after Helen Sharman, who was the first British woman in space. So, interesting concepts, interesting shapes, ladies in space. What's not to love? That's it for this week. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and thanks for joining me. Bye, everyone.